Very good morning to you. You're watching the Morning Cafe Show. I am Shiksha Arora and this is TV 47, right? In case you've just tuned in. Well, we are going to be discussing mental health in workplaces this hour until 9 a.m. With me in studio, I've got, lots of people in the medical field. I'll be speaking to them. We also have a counselor who will be giving us a breakdown on how to manage stress when it comes to working in a hospital or basically anywhere where there is high pressure. So yes, we'll be getting into that. Remember, you can also be a part of this conversation if you are working in a high pressure environment. What are the working conditions like? How do you manage stress? Please talk to us. The WhatsApp number is 0793 267 279, or you can call in live on 0795 045 864. Now, alternatively, you can find us on social media at Shiksha Arora. That's on Instagram, on Facebook, and at TV47KE on Facebook and Instagram. And on X, we are found at TV47 News. Right, so let's get into that conversation. I'd like to start off by introducing the guests I have in studio. Of course, right beside me, I have Richard Ziwa Zimbalist, who's a counselor. Hello, good morning to you, and thank you for being here yet again.
Thank you.
All right, we also have Dr. Wangari. And that's Dr. Wangari right there, a medical intern, looking lovely. We have Dr. Sharon Ngeno. Is she here yet? No, not yet. She'll be coming soon. We have Dr. Jake Mboya. Dr. Jake Mboya is not around. Dr. Nyasoro Hosea, that's you. We also have Dr. Castro Jasper. Not yet. And Dr. Ed Ted. All right, so who haven't I introduced? So you can introduce yourselves.
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Alois Indimuli.
Doctor?
Alois Indimuli.
All right.
I'm a medical intern working at Bagavi Hospital.
Okay, lovely. And what about yourself?
My name is Jane Merino. I'm a pre-intern, currently at Kenyatta University.
All right, lovely. Thank you so much for being here as we have this discussion. You know, of course, this follows how it was a very tragic incident last week where a medical intern took her life, and that was something that really just shocked the nation because of what we got to know, a 36-hour shift. And of course, that's something that I feel is very common to you, because when we hear of something of that sort, we're very shocked. We're taken aback. We're like, 36 hours. How is that humanly possible? How is that physically, mentally, emotionally possible? So we'll get to that. And of course, we'll start off with this particular discussion. I'd like to start off just by having it open-ended. And, you know, if you would like to chime in and if you'd like to be a part of this conversation, please do raise your hand and we can give you the mic. So I'm going to start off by just talking about how important it is to have a work-life balance, and of course to make sure that your mental health is at ease, and especially when you're working in high pressure environments. So why is this so important? So who's going to go first? Nobody?
I
think he should go first then.
I should mention that it's such an exciting experience to be with all these medical doctors and practitioners present here.
Yes.
You can't deny it's regrettable what happened.
Absolutely.
It's painful, traumatic to many people who worked in that same space. But we have all a collective responsibility.
Yes.
And I should say it's a collective failure for all of us, not place emphasis to create support systems that help the health practitioners and several other people in other workspaces to decompress, to distress, to find a place where they abandon and go and have some time to themselves. They need to find a time where they declutter, because this routine that they go through where they lose a sense of self-care for themselves, it's not going to be not only harmful to themselves, but also to the patients who are recipients of their professionalism. There's a place every time and every week, all of us, we need to withdraw,
right,
and take care of self. There's a place where you have accumulated so much as a result of your practice that you need to seek someone where you talk to. You need some relationship, friendships. Friendships are some of those places where you can go and ask for help, more like, say, therapy and counseling. that you don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
Withdraw to a company of friends that genuinely care for you and ask you some uncomfortable questions. How are you doing?
Right.
How are you? Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you guys, since you're here, all the doctors in the studio, what he said. Of course, he said that, do you guys have such conversations amongst yourselves? Do you have check-ins where you're, after you're done with the shift, you're like, how are you feeling today? You know, what was the shift like? Are you okay? Do you have that circle where you are in the same field? And I feel like nobody would understand you better rather than a fellow medical intern, a fellow doctor. So do you have such conversations amongst each other? Maybe you can start off.
Okay. What I was going to mention before I answer that question, the thing about medical school,
Yes.
we have this mentality. When you go through the system, there's some sort of toxic hierarchy.
Okay.
That at the end of the day makes you, it's meant to put the lower people down and glorify like suffering. We're meant to glorify suffering in that we know that when we've joined med school, you've just gone there to probably like suffer, but at the end of the day, you are there to help people.
Yeah.
So that sort of environment, I think, is something that we need to put aside. We need to forget that mentality.
Okay.
I feel like our generation, we're breaking these generational curses.
Yes.
In that, you heard sadly from the story of our departed colleague that she was in an environment that was extremely toxic.
Yes.
And you could, if you look at the story well, you find that many people that were in that internship center also left. So she was left alone. So yes, we do have these checkups and conversations with some of our colleagues. But now the thing is, can you really fill a cup can you fill from an empty cup? When you yourself, you're not feeling well enough to help your other colleague, how really do we help ourselves?
Absolutely.
So we have the problem with our country, we have a knee-jerk reflex. Because these systems are in place, there are boards, there's actually an act, even in our constitution, that is supposed to help us in these situations. But are they really working?
Okay.
It's really sad and depressing in that the systems.
So you have mentioned a very important point, and you said that we have normalized suffering, especially for medical interns, because they're like, you know, this is what we went through. So you're going to go through the same thing. So these are the expectations. Aside from that, what are some of the other mental health challenges that you experience as medical interns? You are raising your hand, so maybe you can take it on from there.
Okay. I think on the point of supporting each other.
Yes.
As my colleague has just said, according to the KMA guideline, point number 2, they encourage us to support. But you can't support, how can we support each other? Again, we are biting each other. Because from the statement...
Is there competition amongst you people?
Well...
Survival of the fittest kind of mentality? Does that exist? No?
I can't say there's a competition. Because if each and every one of us sticks to their line, the consultant, the interns, then
everyone grows, everyone wins.
Everybody knows their roles. But if you look at the case of our departed colleague, there was the long working hours. That means that there's somebody who didn't do their
job. Yes.
That means now, how can we support each other when we don't allow every person to do their job at a given time?
Okay.
And on the issue of balance, of course, mental health is about balancing the 3 major things. That is the emotional aspect, the social aspect, and the psychological aspect.
Okay.
And you find that in the medical field, we are more we trivialize the psychological aspect of and okay. I think we have been brought in that aspect of resilience. You know, we want to act like we can. How can I put it? Like we can, but it has limits. You know, resilient. There's a break point.
There's a breaking point.
Yeah, there's always a recipient. That's the point.
Okay.
Of all that.
Now, why do you think that mental health is overlooked in medical hospitals, basically in healthcare settings. Why is this so? Because he said that, there's this expectation that everyone is supposed to be resilient, right? But like, why is it so that mental health is not one of the key priorities? It is not looked as a critical point of your well-being. I'll start off with you.
I would say that, when someone has mental health issues, it doesn't necessarily show. If like I had a broken arm, I don't have to tell you can see it.
Absolutely.
But with mental health, you could be in the pits and you can still, mask a face and show up and people think you're okay. And then to an extent, it's not been something that has been put in emphasis. We're having conversations earlier about how, to an extent, we don't have capacity to deal with like mental health and issues that come even in the healthcare. For example, our first experiences losing a patient, it was just like, okay, they died, you see a relative crying, the ward round continues. Yeah, life moves on.
Wow.
And you have a lot of work to do, but I mean, something has happened. Someone has just died. Like,
Question. Once you lose your first patient and when you see that happen, it is very tragic for you. Do you have some sort of support? Do you have maybe counseling? He will tell you how important it is to be able to come back and have some support so that you're able to now move on and get over that and kind of heal from there to the next. So you said that you don't have that support.
no.
Wow.
It's like, it happens. Everyone's just like, it happens, don't worry. Like,
When you watch like Dr. House or The Resident, it's so different, the picture that's painted compared to what we're seeing in our country, because when you lose a patient, there is literally a support group where you actually go out there, you open up, you have such conversations. Yes, go on.
On the support, I think it varies with facilities.
Okay.
But for in most facilities, there is usually no support.
Okay.
'Cause, from my experience, when someone loses a patient and you experience that as a student or a pre-intern or an intern, the consultant or the registrar or the person in charge of supervising you can debrief you.
Right.
You can do those regular check-ins with your colleagues.
Okay.
But it's not the kind of check-ins where you have someone that's a professional guiding
Like a
you.
counselor,
Exactly.
like Richard.
Yeah, and if you have to go to a counselor, you're told the counselor's office is in this place, so it's up to you to take that initiative to go.
Ah, okay, okay, all right. Richard, what are your thoughts about this?
I think the trauma that doctors and medical practitioners go through, there's a place where they live on passively, like it's a non-issue. And it's a big issue.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can ignore. It affects you. I would submit that if it requires, some of the mental health experiences we have as medical practitioners require medication, it's easy to take medication. But when it affects you emotionally and psychologically, you think, I don't need to see a counselor. I'm a doctor. You think you have more superiority over this subject than you would help me. I don't need to be in conversation about this. And besides, I can take medication. You can knock yourself out and take a nap and sleep, and you're out of it. But there's a place where you need to break into conversation about how it affects you. There's a need to ask someone to help you to unwind and unpack several of the things that you're going through. Maybe you also need pastoral help. You need a spiritual oversight in some of these things.
Yeah.
There's some things that you cannot deal with medically. You need help. Look for help. Normalize the quest to ask for help. And if you're going through some traumatic experiences, cry out for help and say, I need help.
Yeah, yeah. And, I feel like there's also some sort of correlation between the mental health of a doctor and the care that they offer to a patient, right? Because if you, as you said, you can't pour from an empty cup. And if you are okay, if your mental health is balanced, if you're feeling good mentally, you can offer the same care to the patient. And if that's not the case and you're tired and, you're fatigued, in some cases, you're also mentally burnt out, you're not able to support the patient as well as you would have if you were feeling much better. So in such cases, is there days when you're told, when you just say that I can't show up today, I'm not feeling okay, I need a day off? How does that work in this particular situation?
So let me just give a practical example.
Go on.
So I'm in Bagavi currently.
Okay.
I'm in the newborn unit. In the newborn unit, there is 3 areas. There is a nursery A, nursery B, and then there's an ICU HDU. So like, okay, by there, we've had issues. Actually, as I'm speaking, the interns are not working. We've had issues and we've had to take a break. It's actually more of a strike. And
This has been ongoing for quite some time, right?
actually, we started internship in August.
Okay.
And our determination for the payment was supposed to be done on the 26th, which was last week, Thursday.
Right.
And it was then pushed for some reason to 17th October. So many people couldn't cope with the amount of work being done with no pay. You have loans, your landlord is on your neck. People had to even go back home. So in Nursery B, for example, the last day I worked, we had 56 children, like babies.
Okay.
Nursery A had 40, and then there's those guys in HD. So we are 4 interns. So one intern covers this side, another intern covers A, and 2 of us cover B. So
Yeah.
my colleague got sick.
Okay.
And so I have 54 children. I have to be at work by 6:30, see them before 9 for the consultant to come in. And then once I've seen these kids, the consultant comes and tells me I have to take samples for 30 children. And 20 of them don't have lines. And all this has to be done by the intern.
Oof.
So if you think of it practically, mental health is the last thing on my head. So since
Yeah.
I began working in August, I've done 36-hour shifts more than 6 times.
Wow.
And it's normal because what else can you do? And why I don't really blame the guys, the consultants and all, it's that
Right.
it's a system they found, it's a system they've propagated, and that's who an intern is.
Yeah.
And so it's more of, it's like a rite of passage. So you ask your senior colleagues, they'll be like, internship is 1, 2, 3. So nobody seems to see the issue. And it's not because it's not an issue, but it's because that's what should happen. So in terms of the question you've asked, can there be days where you call in sick? It's not possible because that sickness has to be proven by the medical officer in the staff clinic. And you know, in medicine, there are no rumors. If you're sick, you're sick. If you're not sick, you're not sick. So if you come with a sick sheet from whichever hospital and they don't find it valid, again, you'll either be given maybe a show course or something. So ideally, what I'd say is that for us, mental health, let me just speak for myself.
Okay.
Mental health is the last thing on my head because one, I've not had a salary since August. I have almost 50 children on my, like, in my head. That she's saying even when you lose children, it's normal because there is other 50 children waiting for you. So there's days you lose 4 or 5 children in a night and you are alone. Medical officers are at home, consultants at home. So every nurse is looking at you as the doctor. So yeah, there are days you lose 4 or 5 children by morning and no one cares because when they come, you have to do the ward round. So it's a tricky balance and yeah.
All right. So we have another doctor at the back. So maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us what your thoughts are.
Assistant intern.
Right?
So actually to just add on what he has said, the last thing normally we think of is mental health.
Yeah.
The duties we have, your roster is too big in that what you'll think of next is never mental health. If it will come, it will just come as a sideshow because the other things are just too much to handle. You get yourself to work and then you have this night shift to handle. Then in the next hour you are told your night shift has been cancelled. You have to turn in because there is someone who is not there. So you have to show up to something. So you at back home, your rent is not paid.
Yeah.
Then you have to think of means of getting you to the work area. Then maybe you live with someone. Maybe the person you live with is also an intern. You don't have fare. You know, it gets too much. So the last thing you'll think of, let me go to work because there is a workload I have to live up to, and after the workload I have to think also of how to get back home, so you'll never get to think of it. And also personally I think there is this, it's like the same way my friends have said, there is this kind of societal problem, like the one we say mwanaume ni kujikaza. Whether you get this or you get I think it's same to the doctors.
Yeah.
It's like everyone is looking up to you. You are the doctor.
Yeah.
And then there is this kind of egoistic system, like how can a doctor come for a mental health problem?
Okay.
And then a doctor, the
He's supposed to
doctor's
be the one
like,
treating
yeah,
other people.
the one is the one or she's the one to take care of them. And how does the doctor come for a mental health consultation?
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow, Richard, you are hearing all these concerns. You know, as a counselor, what do you think needs to be done? What systems can we have in place in terms of resources, in terms of offering them support? Because we already know that the facilities that they have are not enough. The resources they have to provide for mental support are not enough. So what do you think needs to be done?
First, I should say that to permit is to participate. The fact that there are people who permit this kind of behavior pattern in your working spaces, they participate in the chaos that they are seeing, and they cannot absolve themselves of that guilt.
Right.
Sometimes I think carrying guilt is not enough. It requires that we all come as a collective to help, because we can't recover ourselves from that guilt and condemnation we have and heap around ourselves. So there are many organizations and bodies that should be able to come. There's a need for chaplaincy to come into play to help alongside the doctors. There's a need for counselors, professional counselors, to access and find their way to, through the medical superintendents, to call out for help. If they need help, let them access them for help. For those who would consider spiritual oversight, seeks help. You need help. And you see, there's a place where you need to choose you. Just as much as you want to give help to your patients.
Yeah.
If you dig a hole in a dry space, let's say you're drilling water in a dry spell, the best you can get is gravel and sand. There's nothing to give out of there. So you're drilling in an attempt to find water, but these guys are depleted. You can tell if you're pushing for 36 hours, you're walking zombie after that time. You readily have much to give. So quite likely it's a self-defeating behavior pattern. If you keep on reporting to work and you're tired, you're depleted, you're sick, you need help. Please don't keep quiet. Cry out for help and be assertive about it. No one is going to give it to you until you ask for it.
Yeah.
Your supervisor quite likely will be dismissive about that need, but you know you need help. Say, I need help, and go for it. There's a young lady the other day who was taken into rehab. Is also a medical practitioner. We just took a note of a few observations around her life, and we said, Doctor, you're not okay.
Yeah.
You should also have friends who should be able to tell you rightly so, you're not okay.
You don't look okay.
You need help. And when someone asks you, are you okay? Let's normalize healthy conversation and communications within our workspaces. Today it's a doctor, tomorrow it's a teacher. All these strikes is a cry for help.
Yeah.
And to ignore them, it's not about a pay rise, a need for remuneration. It's a cry for help. And I think the authorities who are in place, they need to give us leadership so that people do not short circuit and end their lives as a result of not getting the help that is readily available.
Yes.
We have an epidemic that is ongoing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, what I wanted to add on to what he said, some of these challenges that we have as doctors, really, we can really pinpoint the solution. Case in point, the story that is ongoing, that is in current discussion, is on our remuneration.
Absolutely, yes.
Why would we ask to be paid for working? How does that literally just
It's your right.
make sense? Yeah, it's our
You have
right.
worked for it.
How does and then now it comes into play, people mentioning on social media that did we ask you to become doctors? Did we? Why would you ask such a question, yet you're seeing what it is that we are doing? We are literally saving people's lives. Without us, many hospitals would actually crumble. Interns are the backbone of hospitals. And if you look at the WHO recommendation, the ratio of doctors to patients should be 1:1,000. In Kenya, we're about 50 million, give or take. Our ratio is currently at 1:6,700 or something like that.
Wow.
And yet, here we are saying that there are no doctors, and yet the systems that are put in place are not good enough to support us. It's like they're chasing us away.
Yeah.
There's a lot of brain drain in terms of, if you ask even amongst us that are sat here, 90% of us will tell you that we want to leave the country, we want to go elsewhere, because we're being treated as if we're not needed.
Yeah.
And yet apparently we are healthcare providers. We are people that literally people's life, we hold
on
people's lives in our hands.
Yes.
And then on top of that, in terms of mental health, if you look at the ratio of the number of psychiatrists that we have actually in Kenya, I think it's about, when I last checked, they're about 120. And if you look at the WHO recommendation, should be, I think in Kenya we need about 20,000 of them. So I really feel like some of these problems, the solution the government can handle.
Yeah.
Something like pay. We have one of our really good leaders who has come up, Morara Kebaso. He goes and finds where Kenya has fallen short, where we're losing money, he's giving us insight on where things are going wrong. And yet here we're giving problems. We're telling people this is the problem. We're not being paid. The solution keeps on getting backdated. Like for example, now the case that was supposed to be handled in court, now
Yes.
we're hearing the dates being pushed aside. So I feel like these systems that are already in place should work. Ideally should work in the ideal situation. But
Okay.
here, them not working
Yeah.
leads us to such situations.
Okay, right. Now I'm going to ask you, maybe a few of you can just highlight what your personal experiences have been, and maybe you can tell us, just paint the picture of a moment in your life when your personal health, your mental health was suffering, and you are in the pits, you are at your lowest. I'm sure there's been a couple, because I can hear like there's a bit of, contemplation amongst you. So maybe you can just paint that picture for people who are watching, just so that they know what your average life is like as a medical intern and how stressful it really is to be a medical intern here in the country. Whoever wants to go first can go for it.
I can go first.
Yes, go first.
So let's start on a Monday.
Okay.
So assuming I'm on, there's different shifts. Sometimes you're on day call, sometimes you're on night call. So every day you're at work to begin with. So there's nothing like an off day. So Monday to Monday, you have to be at work.
There's no off day. 7 days a week you're working.
There's nothing like an off day. For an intern, at
And
least.
how many hours?
So it depends. That's why I want to paint it. So like
Yeah.
if you're on a day call, your day starts you have to be in the facility you're on call means that aside from the duties you have, you're the person who, if there's a referral, you're the one to receive, there's a new admission, if there's a resuscitation or anything happening, you're the person who, the nurses and everyone, your number is there.
Okay.
The person who has to be called. So if you're on day call, you have, the earliest you can leave the facility is 8 p.m. if you report at 7.
Okay.
The day you're not on day call is the day you leave at 5.
Right.
Now, the day you are on night call, you first report to day call, do your normal duties. Then when you get to around 3, 4 p.m., you're given 2 hours to sleep. And then from 6 to the next morning, you're the person on shift.
What?
And after that, you have to
Yes.
do the ward round to then leave. So on average, the number of hours I sleep in a week are 5 times, maybe 5 times, for maybe 20 hours max or 25. at
In a
best.
week?
In a week. Because then the other 2 days you're doing night call. And on some night calls, you can have so many things happening. Like, let me give you an example of the newborn unit. It's attached to the maternity side.
Okay.
So when kids are born and they are unstable, you're the person being called to review them. You're not a consultant, you're not a medical officer, you're an intern. But the assumption is you know enough to save that baby. So you'll find that you've been called down here, some babies are dying, you resuscitate, you even lose them. Now you have to go back, still keep doing your job. So if I was to talk about mental health, I've never even noticed they have a problem. Because now the challenge is every person you meet has problems like you. And so when you meet them and tell them you're struggling, they're like, you're also struggling. I'm struggling like yourself.
Wow.
So it's more of, in a normal week, you sleep between 20 to 25 hours at best.
Wow.
And there are days it can be worse.
Richard,
Because, yes.
Thank you so much for that. You know, these are things that we don't really hear of because they are the unspoken things that, you know, I feel like medical interns have this perception of being tough and you're supposed to tough it out regardless of what you're going through. So I'm so glad that we're having this conversation just to be able to hear what it really is like. Richard, you've heard that on an average 20 hours in a week. Maybe you can tell us the long-term effects of not having enough sleep and how it affects you physically, mentally, you know, your well-being, you fall sick, you have diseases.
Do you hope to get married? Very soon. You're going to have trouble, my friend. That's the honest truth. You have a wife to take care of, you have children to take care of, and have extended family members that depend on you. And you have your other social networks that will require some time off you. So it can't be that you lose the need to choose you at one point and take care of you. That is totally unethical and it's totally very unhealthy. And whoever is supervising over you, it's abuse. That's the best we can say. It's abuse. And anyone who genuinely cares for you should be able to respond to whoever is in your employment and say, please find a way you redefine this. And if there's anyone watching in a place of authority and leadership, because everything falls and rises on leadership. And if someone does not respond correctly, you break down. You're young. But you see, there's a particular place where certain decisions have a shelf time. Your decision to provide health care to vulnerable young children, and I applaud you for the great work you're doing. You're doing an incredible work. Those children you're giving support to and the mothers, believe me, they need you healthy.
Yeah.
The best that you can give is when you're in your authentic self. So if you're sick, the way you're describing, it's clear you're already sick. It's only that people see you smiling, and that's the flip side about this mental health problem. People see you glowing and smiling, and they think you're okay. But you see, if you walk around here, we have more mad men than women on the roads. Look to any street anywhere in Nairobi. You rarely find naked women, but you find naked men walking around. They are talking to the cables, electrical cables, and they're smiling. You break down. It won't be long. So you don't need to wait for that time where your body sends a signal that you cannot ignore to look for help. Cry out for help. Keep on saying, I need a break. And search your rights. I'm sure you have only 8 working hours that is legal, that you're supposed to work. If anything goes past that, you're working overtime, that's your choice. But the legal, please go for it. But also I'd say, if you go past a particular age quadrant and you persist working like that, you're going to have the same disease you know well to describe, high blood pressure. And you'll be medicating yourself while you're treating others. And it's not healthy.
Autoimmune diseases as well.
Yeah.
You know, these are things that we see in the movies and they're all stress related and stress induced. So I feel like these are things that you guys know better than any of us when it comes to what comes with the repercussions of not having good sleep.
I would not want you to say that there's no way out.
Yeah.
There's a way out.
Yeah.
There's a framework and an organization behind all the medical practitioners to which you must file complaints. And there's a systemic way with which they should give support for all the medical practitioners to at least to seek counseling and therapy.
Absolutely.
You need it. You need it. And if there's chaplains, I know every hospital has a measure of chaplains associated with it. Please call out for help. They're there to give you help.
All right, so we have a new guest that has just joined us. Daktari, please introduce yourself and, you know, tell us a bit about what you do.
Hello, my name is Dr. Jacob Mboya. I'm one of the medical pre-interns.
Okay.
So I'm happy to join this discussion on mental health. Not long ago, I think one of us sadly committed suicide, and it's attributed to some of the challenges that we are facing as medical interns. So I think this is a very timely discussion for all of us, and I'm really happy that we are all weighing into it intern to really try see if we can come up with solutions to this subject that continues to really affect not just medical interns. It stretches actually all the way from medical school, which is very intense, and even for doctors, the ones who are doing their postgraduate studies. I think not long ago we had a pediatrician who sadly committed suicide in the parking lot at the University of Nairobi. So this is really a subject that really needs to be talked about. The doctors that take care of patients also need to be taken care of.
Absolutely.
We are all humans. We also have problems. So I'm really happy that we are having this discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So, one of the doctors actually painted a picture of what it's like day to day and what happens, the times that you're actually working, the time that you have to sleep, which, by the way, has shocked me. And I'm sure if you're watching as a viewer, these are things that we don't really hear much about because of how tough our medical interns really are. But at the same time, I also feel like you need to be taken care of, just as he has mentioned. That's Dr. Jacob. Now, tell me about your work-life balance, because everything needs balance, right? And I feel like these are things that we really need to put into as one of our priorities. Do you have times where you actually go out with friends, you have a drink, you watch a movie, you go for dinner? Do you have such situations? Do you have time for relationships? Do you have time to meet your parents, your families? Do you have time for yourselves where you go out, go to the spa, go for a massage? Like, do you have such moments where even if it, maybe once a week would be stretching it, maybe even once a month, you take some time off for yourselves? Do you have such moments?
Okay, I can say it's rare. I can say it's rare, and if it's there,
how rare is it?
Okay.
For you personally?
Personally, I can say for the last kind of 2.5 months you have been there, maybe once.
Once in 2.5 months.
Because it's rare, because you have a lot to do.
Okay.
And bearing that at the back of the mind, you don't have the funds that are enough. So sometimes you think to yourself, why can I do it? The back of the mind, the finance load, burden, rent, and whatever is not there. And then apart from that, I think the rosters are too much. I can say personally, there was a time I had my brother who was sick, and the roster was too much. Asking for, it was the first month, and trying to ask for kind of some short leave to go and look for the brother, because we are just only two. And going to take care of the brother, I was told, like, you have this to do. Oof. So you're to a new place, you have to think of the work. Or if you want to leave, we'll just give you a letter telling the ministry that we are happy to have you.
Just for short leave?
Yeah. So it gets worse. So you don't even think of now getting to the other part of the life, your social life, because if you don't have time to get to take care of your loved ones, then I don't think they'll ever allow you to do that, because you have to harden up.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
For me, I'm going to give the perspective of a pre-intern.
Okay.
Which, like, it's also hard to get the time to balance that, like, work-life balance.
Yeah. So he's mentioned that obviously there's also financial obligations that you have that you need to take care of before now you start going and enjoying things for leisure. So yeah, what else do you think is an issue when it comes to taking time off?
Of course, he's mentioned also the duty roster. The expectations that are there for, like, an intern or a pre-intern. You're expected to always be up to date with the cases that are in the hospital. You're expected to know all that, so you have to keep on reading. And if you decide to take some time off just for yourself, you tend to be looked at as unserious, like you don't prioritize your patients, and in so doing, you might end up like worsening the situation of your patients. Oof. So you have to choose either ensuring that your patients get better in their discharge so that you might have like a good record, or you prioritize yourself and risk all that, which might end up with you being sued for neglect or such things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, go on.
I think on the social aspect, reminds me when I was in medical school.
Medical school, by the way, is 6 years, right? If I'm not wrong.
I'm a minimum of 7.
7. Oh,
Yes.
okay. With the strikes. Yeah. I went to Nairobi University, so I know.
University of Nairobi. Okay. So it reminds me back on the days when I was in medical school, it was hard to balance. If you do go to church, let's say on Sabbath, you had to design a strategy to catch up with those who never went to church on Saturday or on Sunday, because they were reading.
Even those 3 hours.
Even those 3 hours. If you dared to date somebody, yeah, and
I like that. If you dared to date somebody.
and you went to those dates and all those activities,
Yeah.
you had to design a mechanism to catch up with the others. So, and in the process of designing the mechanism to catch up with others, you develop stress. Then after developing stress, you develop burnout. Then from there now, that's when now things become hard, and now you have to find a way of. I remember there's a time I was in a rock bottom. I used to call it rock bottom because there was a lot on my plate, so I had to visit the school clinic just to have a discussion with the. That's the first time actually I knew that there was a counselor in school. 90% of medical students don't know if there's a
They don't even know.
the counselor in school. So that means you have to design a way of catching up.
Okay.
And that turns up to be very stressful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So we've spoken about the challenges, the struggles. Now let's go to the positives. I'm sure there's many, because that's the truth. This is your passion. This is something that you've worked so hard to become. You're really, really passionate about saving lives. I'm sure there's good days, especially when you save a life. I'm sure the feeling is just incomparable. So are there good days? Yeah? You can start?
Definitely, there are good days. I mean, most of us seated here, we were the top students in this country, and we really, really hoped.
I love that.
We
Absolutely
really
love
hoped that we would.
Straight A's, I'm guessing.
Yeah, everyone
like even
says.
A, 99, 100.
Yeah. Most of us were really, really top students. So we got ourselves into medicine, and our desire was really, really to impact our society positively. And through medicine accords us that unique privilege of seeing people at their most vulnerable positions, and just offering that helping hand to lift them out of that trouble. Yeah, so there are good days in terms of there are days that your decision, your clinical acumen actually saves someone's life, and those are the days that you choose to pat yourself on the back and you say it was worth it.
It was worth it. All those years in med school was absolutely worth it. Yes.
I'm sure all of us here can relate that one of the best days while being a medical student was appearing on the pass list. Yeah, because there's a lot of tension that goes with being in the pass list. People, like, you end up transniting, you survive on energy drinks, you put your health at risk and all that. But when someone is on the pass list, it's like, it's all worth it.
Yeah.
So beyond that, normally people have something that drove them to get into medicine.
Yes.
Yeah, so for most people, if it's the desire to save lives and the desire to make a change, there might be all these negatives and the systemic failures and all that. But once someone gets themselves out there and they're able to save a life, as Doc has said here, once you're able to save a life, it brings you that joy, and you're like, at least it's not that bad. I got to do what I'm passionate about. Then you go back to the cycle of failures and all that.
Yeah.
Have a life and you're all good.
Yeah.
So that's
Right. Okay. So, in a nutshell, if I was to ask this question, right, and you have to be as honest as possible, is it all doom and gloom for young doctors in our country? Yes or no? And if you say yes, why? If you say no, why? Fred. Ted. Fred. Sorry. Sorry, my co-host is sitting right there, so I thought of him. Ted, Dr. tell me.
Okay. Personally, in my own perspective, I just feel I also even tell the people that come to me and ask me for advice whether they should do or start studying medicine in Kenya, I tell them not to do it.
Seriously?
Yeah, I tell them not.
Do you know, this is something that I have experienced personally, because when I was in my undergrad, I actually did microbiology and biotechnology, but I wanted to do medicine so badly. Like, I was so passionate about just med school, medicine, biology, saving lives. I used to watch Grey's Anatomy, you know, Dr. House. Like, I was obsessed. That was the word. And I went and asked all my doctors who have treated me, and each and every one of them said no, despite the fact that they're making a whole lot of money now, obviously, because they're 60 plus. And, you know, you look at their lifestyle, you look, they're happy, but they tell you that it's not easy. If you're somebody who wants to stay sane, don't do it. So I looked at them and I'm like, why are they sabotaging me? Why? Now I'm going to understand better. Go on, Ted.
Yeah, if you took me back the 6, 7, 8 years ago, it's probably, knowing what I know right now, it's probably not something, because we've suffered a lot. We've suffered a lot actually entering the system, because the medical school and all this system is just built to beat you down. The way I said, we've really glorified suffering a lot. And it's not, I don't think there's anybody in this life who was born to suffer. And even in our generation,
nobody deserves to suffer.
We said, see, we are baby boys and baby girls.
Yes.
we're not supposed to suffer. So, because the way the system is designed, really, it's not really conducive for you as an individual. For example, case in point, I really had things that I loved doing. I was a rugby player.
You have hobbies?
Yes, I had the hobbies. All of them went to, they've gone.
When is the last time you went out to do something that you absolutely love, like your hobby?
I think that was during our breaks, during our breaks in campus, back in campus. Yeah, otherwise, other than that, no. Not really. Okay. Because the way the system is built, you literally, medicine becomes your life, and that's not really, it's not really conducive for a human being. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Okay, I think I'll contrast a bit with my colleagues.
Yes, sure.
I like to say, to tell the young doctors like myself, that there's hope.
There's hope.
There's hope. Only if our Kenyan government adheres to the policies that are set for us.
What are these policies?
They're there in KMA. There's KMA policies. There's the Health Act.
Yes.
There is the CBAs. So many policies that, how can you not pay young doctors who are just struggling?
Yeah.
They have just come from school.
Yeah.
That's so unfair.
Yeah.
But there's hope. If that is reversed, there's hope for us. Because the medical profession used to be a very prestigious
Absolutely. It still is. I don't think we should use the past tense. Personally speaking, well, maybe from an outsider's perception rather, because when you look at a doctor and you look at the things that they do, I hold you guys in very high regard. I really respect the work that you do, even interns, even those in first year. Just to get to first year alone, it's not easy. You have to be at the top of the class. You have to be the smartest, as he had mentioned. Daktari said that some of you guys, not some, all of you guys are extremely brilliant. And you have intellectual capabilities that not everyone does. You are very, very good at what you do, so which is why you're here today. So I don't think we should say used to. I still feel like, yes, there are some hiccups, there are some challenges, but personally, we, from outsiders and our outsiders' viewpoint, I think you guys are still very, very precious. You are prestigious. Being a doctor is one of the highest, not just paying, well, maybe not paying, maybe when you guys are now specialized and surgeons and stuff, but like I feel like it is one of the most skilled jobs, and just to be able to qualify as a doctor, it's a big deal. So kudos to you. Yes, we're going to be winding up shortly.
I think I'd say yes and no to answer your question. Is there a hope? I think yes.
Yes.
Yes, because we are having more of a governance and leadership issue than a real issue. Because if medicine then was not a good course, in other jurisdictions you'll also see the same challenges. So to the extent that it's a problem within Kenya and looking at the world as your horizon, there is hope. But again, I discourage someone, now they know, comes in with the fact that our politics and how everything is structured I don't think in the next 30, 40 years we'll have made a big difference.
Really?
I can definitely say that.
30 years? You think it's going to take that long?
Let me just give you my reason why.
Go on.
My reason is, let me just use what the Gen Z did the other day.
Yeah.
When the president flipped the coin and gave people in their own regions, their leaders and everything, you just saw how Kenyans immediately glorified the same. So to show you that there's things which are deeply rooted within our system that will make it probably difficult for things to change soon. So to that end, I'll say that the struggle is on, and for anyone who wants to join, let them join with the mindset that there's these challenges that I have to go through, but then it's like the light at the end of the tunnel, that once then I'm done through the pipeline and internship, I'm open to explore opportunities.
We don't know how long the tunnel is
Yeah.
though. That's the problem. Yes, Dr.
I think the discussion you're having about mental health is good and it's necessary. However, I think, okay, so this is what happens. When, for example, I have a stomach bug and my symptoms are vomiting. If, as a doctor, I only give my patient antiemetics, which is, medication to help them stop vomiting, it will help with the vomiting, but it's not treated the issue, which is the stomach bug. Mental health is lovely, because, it will help us cope with all these issues that are causing us to get to where we are. But the truth is there is the stomach bug that is causing us to...
Underlying issues are there.
If we're not employing enough people, the conditions at the health facilities, they're, poorly staffed, resources are few.
No pay.
Things, no pay, long hours, toxic environment. If that continues, I feel like even the mental health interventions can only help for so long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Richard, as we wrap up, what are your last thoughts about this particular discussion that we've had today?
It's clear we all have mental issues. But one thing that you can all agree is that when it comes to mental health, we are all developing countries. All of us across the globe, we all have a collective responsibility to take care of ourselves first. You can't give what you don't have.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to find a way with which we create an environment that genuinely cares for one another, let's get into conversation. I know someone out there in authority is listening, especially who's pretending over these amazing, incredible people. You guys are doing an incredible work.
Yeah.
I had a health situation that required me to see a medical doctor. And I saw a medical doctor, found him watching football. He misdiagnosed me. He was watching a football match. So when I came back the following morning, I found another medical doctor who had not slept. All of a sudden, she told me, you didn't have to take this medication. So she prescribed something totally different. Then she told me, you need to change what you put on your plate. You didn't need medication.
Okay.
So this is the best I can tell you. Call for help. Let's go from good actions. Let's go from good intentions to good actions.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, doctors. You guys have been very crucial to drive the point home. And I hope somebody somewhere is listening, and I hope your cries are heard in future. But keep it up. Good job. And we do appreciate you. Always remember that. Because of you, you are able to save lives. And if you weren't there, then we'd be dead. Period.
That's true.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed this conversation. Remember, we'll be having such every Wednesday right here on TV 47. This is the Morning Cafe Show. I am Shiksha Arora.